Hey everybody, I'm Miss Megan and this is Virtual Storytime with the Tyrrell County Public Library. I'm sorry that we can't all be together in person. I miss seeing all of your smiling faces and I really hope that you will come visit us and come check out some new books, find some really cool stuff to do here at the library. It's just that right now we're not gathering in large groups because we're trying to keep everybody safe and healthy. So I am really excited for our story time this time because there is a special holiday coming up and I doubt that it's the one you think. I'm not talking about anything big like Valentine's Day or Christmas or Easter or any of those holidays, but this is a much smaller holiday that I don't know if any of you guys know about, but I'm excited about it. Tuesday, January 18th is a celebration of a famous author's birthday. That author is A.A. Milne. And his famous book that we are celebrating is Winnie the Pooh. I don't know about you guys, but I know that I love Pooh Bear and my boys love Pooh Bear, and I hope that you guys love Pooh Bear too because I'm going to read you some Winnie the Pooh stories in a bit. So January 18th is known as Winnie the Pooh Day in celebration of author A.A. Milne. So we are going to talk about Winnie the Pooh and about people who write. What kind of people do you think of? What do you think of when you hear the term author or writer? Do you think of people who write newspaper articles? Do you think of people who write books like Winnie the Pooh or like your favorite storybook? Do you think of the people who write all the books that we keep here in the library? Those are all correct answers, but I wonder if you know that you can be an author too. Do you keep a journal? Do you like to write stories or make up stories in your head? When you sit down and play, do you make up stories for your toys? You're doing writing. And I'm really hoping that coming to the library and reading new books and hanging out with me and all of the other things that we do will help to encourage you to write. Because if you can write, you're going to go really far in life and you're also going to have an absolute blast. So, there is a difference between different kinds of writing. So you know there's journal articles or newspaper articles. Those are usually stories about something going on in the world right now. Those are usually true stories or what we call nonfiction. Children's books, like the kind I read to you, are known as picture books because they are filled with pictures. And then you have books for young adults, you have juvenile books that are aimed at kids a little bit older than you guys, and then there's adult fiction. So there's all kinds of stories that you can write. The funny thing is, Winnie the Pooh falls a little bit in between what we call a chapter book and a children's picture book because it has all kinds of pictures in it, as well as being filled with writing. So we're going to read a couple of chapters of Winnie the Pooh. Are you guys ready? I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for us. We're going to start with chapter 2, which is entitled, In Which Pooh Goes Visiting in a Tight Place. Edward Bear, known to his friends as Winnie the Pooh, or Pooh for short, was walking through the forest one day, humming proudly to himself. He had made up a little hum that very morning as he was doing his stoutness exercises in front of the glass. Tra-la-la, tra-la-la, as he stretched up high as he could go, and then tra-la-la, tra-la, oh help, la, as he tried to reach his toes. Do you have trouble touching your toes? I bet you guys can't. Why don't you show me if you can touch your toes? I want to see it. Oh my goodness, you guys did an awesome job. I'm really excited. After breakfast, he had said it over and over to himself until he had learned it by heart, and now he was humming it right through properly. It went like this. Tra-la-la, 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 rum-tum, tiddle-um-tum, tiddle-iddle, 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 rum-tum-tum, tiddle-um. Well, he was gaily humming this to himself and walking along, wondering what everybody else was doing and what it felt like being somebody else, when suddenly he came to a sandy bank, and in the bank was a large hole. Aha, said Pooh, rum-tum, tiddle-um-tum. If I know anything about anything, that hole means rabbit, he said, and rabbit means company. He said, and company means food and listening to me hum and such like. Rum-tum-tum, tiddle-um. So he bent down, put his head into the hole, and called out, Is anybody at home? There was a sudden scuffling noise from inside the hole, then silence. What I said was, Is anybody at home? Said Pooh very loudly. No, called a voice, then added, You needn't shout so loud. I heard you quite well the first time. Bother, said Pooh. Isn't there anybody here at all? Nobody. That seems a little strange, don't you think? Winnie the Pooh took his head out of the hole and thought for a little, and then he thought to himself, there must be somebody there, because somebody must have said nobody. So he put his head back into the hole and said, "Hello, Rabbit, isn't that you?" "No," said Rabbit, in a different sort of voice this time. "But isn't that Rabbit's voice?" "I don't think so," said Rabbit. "It isn't meant to be." "Oh," said Pooh. He took his head out of the hole and had another think, and then he put it back in and said, "Well, could you very kindly tell me where Rabbit is?" "He's gone to see his friend Pooh Bear, who is a great friend of his." "But this is me," said Bear, very much surprised. "What sort of me?" "Pooh Bear." "Are you sure?" said Rabbit, still more surprised. Quite sure," said Pooh. "Oh, well, then come in." So Pooh pushed and pushed and pushed his way through the hole, and at last he got in. "You were quite right," said Rabbit, looking at him all over. "It is you. Glad to see you. Who did you think it was?" "Well, I wasn't sure. You know how it is in the forest. One can't have anybody coming into one's house. One has to be careful. What about a mouthful of something?" Pooh always liked a little something at 11 o'clock in the morning, and he was very glad to see Rabbit getting out plates and mugs. And when Rabbit said, "Honey or condensed milk with your bread," he was so excited that he said both. And then, so as not to seem greedy, he added, "But don't bother about the bread, please." And for a long time after that he said nothing, until at last, humming to himself in a rather sticky voice, he got up, shook Rabbit lovingly by the paw, and said that he must be going on. "Must you?" said Rabbit politely. "Well," said Pooh, "I could stay a little longer if you—" and he tried very hard to look in the direction of the larder. "As a matter of fact," said Rabbit, "I was going out myself directly." "Oh, well then, I'll be going on. Goodbye." "Well, goodbye, if you're sure you won't have any more." "Is there any more?" asked Pooh quickly. Rabbit took the covers off the dishes and said, "No, there wasn't." "I thought not," said Pooh, nodding to himself. "Well, goodbye, I must be going on." So he started to climb out of the hole. He pulled with his front paws and pushed with his back paws, and in a little while his nose was out in the open again, and then his ears, and then his front paws, and then his shoulders, and then— "Oh, help!" said Pooh. "I had better go back." "Oh, bother!" said Pooh. "I shall have to go on." "I can't do either," said Pooh. "Oh, help and bother." "Look at that, he's stuck." Now by this time Rabbit wanted to go for a walk too, and finding the front door full, he went out by the back door and came around to Pooh and looked at him. "Hello, are you stuck?" he asked. "No, said Pooh carelessly. "Just resting and thinking and humming to myself." "Here, give us a paw." Pooh Bear stretched out a paw, and Rabbit pulled and pulled and pulled. "Ow!" cried Pooh. "You're hurting." "The fact is," said Rabbit, "you're stuck." "It all comes," said Pooh crossly, "of not having front doors big enough." "It all comes," said Rabbit sternly, "of eating too much." "I thought at the time," said Rabbit, "only I didn't like to say anything," said Rabbit. "That one of us was eating too much," said Rabbit. "And I knew it wasn't me," he said. "Well, well, I shall go and fetch Christopher Robin." Christopher Robin lived at the other end of the forest, and when he came back with Rabbit and saw the front half of Pooh, he said, "Silly old bear," in such a loving voice that everybody felt quite hopeful again. "I was beginning to think," said Bear, sniffing slightly, "that Rabbit might never be able to use his front door again. And I should hate that," he said. "So should I," said Rabbit. "Use his front door again," said Christopher Robin. "Of course he'll use his front door again." "Good," said Rabbit. "If we can't pull you out, Pooh, we might push you back." Rabbit scratched his whiskers thoughtfully and pointed out that when once Pooh was pushed back, he was back, and of course nobody was more glad to see Pooh than he was. Still, there it was. Some lived in trees and some lived underground, and— "You mean I'd never get out?" said Pooh. "I mean," said Rabbit, "that having got so far, it seems a pity to waste it." Christopher Robin nodded. "Then there's only one thing to be done," he said. "We shall have to wait for you to get thin again." "How long does getting thin take?" asked Pooh anxiously. "About a week, I should think." "But I can't stay here for a week." "You can stay here all right, silly old bear. It's getting you out which is so difficult." "We'll read to you," said Rabbit cheerfully. "And I hope it won't snow," he added. "And I say, old fellow, you're taking up a good deal of room in my house. Do you mind if I use your back legs as a towel horse? Because, I mean, there they are, doing nothing, and it would be very convenient just to hang towels on them." "A week," said Pooh gloomily. "What about meals?" "I'm afraid no meals," said Christopher Robin, "because of you getting thin quicker. But we will read to you." Bear began to sigh, and then found he couldn't because he was so tightly stuck, and a tear rolled down his eye, and he said, "Then would you read a sustaining book, such as would help and comfort a wedged bear in great tightness?" So for a week, Christopher Robin read that sort of book at the north end of Pooh, and Rabbit hung his washing on the south end, and in between, Bear felt himself getting slenderer and slenderer. And at the end of the week, Christopher Robin said, "Now!" So he took hold of Pooh's front paws, and Rabbit took hold of Christopher Robin, and all Rabbit's friends and relations took hold of Rabbit, and they all pulled together. And for a long time, Pooh only said, "Ow," and "Oh," and then all of a sudden he said, "Pop," just as if a cork were coming out of a bottle. And Christopher Robin and Rabbit and all Rabbit's friends and relations went head over heels backwards, and on top of them came Winnie the Pooh, free. So with a nod of thanks to his friends, he went on with his walk through the forest, humming proudly to himself. But Christopher Robin looked after him lovingly and said to himself, "Silly old bear." What did you guys think? Is that the Pooh Bear that you know and remember? It's the Pooh Bear I remember. So, fun fact. Did you know that the stories in A.A. Milne's book, Winnie the Pooh, are based on his real life? A.A. Milne wrote lots and lots of stories and told lots and lots of stories to his son, the actual Christopher Robin. And Christopher Robin had a stuffed bear named Winnie the Pooh. But even more than that, Christopher Robin's stuffed bear was named after a real-life bear that they went to visit at the London Zoo. So this particular bear was a bear that a Canadian regiment, which is a group of soldiers, brought over as their mascot when they were coming to be in Europe for a little while. And they discovered that as the bear Winnie grew, they couldn't take care of her. And so the owner of the bear donated her and gave her a home at the London Zoo. And young Christopher Robin used to come to the zoo and would be let in to go play with this very special bear named Winnie. And when Christopher Robin had his stuffed bear, it was obvious that Winnie should be the name of his bear. So it became Edward Bear, or Winnie the Pooh. And that is the basis for A.A. Milne's stories that he told to his son to entertain him. And they're based off of all of his stuffed animals, which you can actually go see in a museum in New York, the original Winnie the Pooh stuffed animals. So what did you think about this story? What is it that makes Winnie the Pooh so funny? I think it's the way that he looks at the world, and the way that he thinks, and the way that he talks. I think that it is really fun to listen to Winnie the Pooh try to reason through problems, like when he and Christopher Robin are trying to figure out how to get him out, and Rabbit goes, "No, no, no, don't push him back in. We'd hate to waste what we've got already." Even though if you and I were to think about the problem, we would go, but if you push him back in, then you could widen the doorway and let him out again. But it makes for really, really fun stories to read how Winnie the Pooh thinks about things, doesn't it? So let's see. At this point in time, I would like you guys to do me a favor. I want you to pause this video, parents and adult people who are taking care of my little friends. I want you to pause this video in just a minute, and I want you guys to get up and move around as much as you possibly can in about 30 seconds. And then I want you to come back. Okay, are you ready? Go! Look at you guys, you got all those wiggles out, didn't you? You did a great job. I'm super proud of you all. Are you guys ready to read another Pooh Bear story? I know I am. All right, here we go. We're gonna read another Pooh Bear story. This one is chapter 3 of Winnie the Pooh, and it is called "In Which Pooh and Piglet Go Hunting and Nearly Catch a Woozle." What do you guys think a woozle is? And should we catch it? I think we'll find out. The Piglet lived in a very grand house in the middle of a beech tree, and the beech tree was in the middle of the forest, and Piglet lived in the middle of the house. Next to his house was a piece of broken board which had "Trespassers W" on it. When Christopher Robin asked Piglet what it meant, he said it was his grandfather's name and had been in the family for a long time. Christopher Robin said you couldn't be called Trespassers W, and Piglet said yes you could, because his grandfather was, and it was short for Trespassers Will, which was short of Trespassers William. And his grandfather had had 2 names in case he lost one, Trespassers after an uncle, and William after Trespassers. "I've got 2 names," said Christopher Robin carelessly. "Well, there you are, that proves it," said Piglet. One fine winter's day, when Piglet was brushing away the snow in front of his house, he happened to look up, and there was Winnie the Pooh. Pooh was walking round and around in a circle, thinking of something else, and when Piglet called to him, he just went on walking. "Hello," said Piglet. "What are you doing?" "Hunting," said Pooh. "Hunting what?" "Tracking something," said Winnie the Pooh very mysteriously. "Tracking what?" said Piglet, edging closer. "That's just what I ask myself. I ask myself, what?" "What do you think you'll answer?" Piglet asked. I shall have to wait until I catch up with it, said Winnie the Pooh. Now, look there. He pointed to the ground in front of him. What do you see there? Tracks, said Piglet. Paw marks. He gave a little squeak of excitement. Oh, Pooh, do you think it's a woozle? It may be, said Pooh. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. You can never tell with paw marks. With these few words, he went on tracking, and Piglet, after watching him for a minute or two, ran after him. Winnie the Pooh had come to a sudden stop, and he was bending over the tracks in a puzzled sort of way. What's the matter? Asked Piglet. It's a very funny thing, said Bear, but there seem to be two animals now. This, whatever it was, has been joined by another whatever it is, and the two of them are now proceeding in company. Would you mind coming with me, Piglet, in case they turn out to be hostile animals? Piglet scratched his ear in a nice sort of way and said that he had nothing to do until Friday and would be delighted to come, just in case it really was a woozle. Oh, you mean in case it really is two woozles, said Winnie the Pooh, and Piglet said that anyhow he had nothing to do until Friday. So off they went together. There was a spinely larch of trees just here, and it seemed as if the two woozles, if that is what they were, had been going around and around this spiny. So around this spiny went Pooh and Piglet after them, Piglet passing the time by telling Pooh what his grandfather Trespassers W had done to remove stiffness after tracking, and how his grandfather Trespassers W had suffered in his later years from shortness of breath and other matters of interest. And Pooh wondered what a grandfather was like, and if perhaps this was two grandfathers they were after now, and if so, whether he should be allowed to take one home and keep it, and what Christopher Robin would say. And still the tracks went on in front of them. Suddenly Winnie the Pooh stopped and pointed excitedly in front of him. Look! What? Said Piglet with a jump. And then, to show that he hadn't been frightened, he jumped up and down once or twice in an exercising sort of way. The tracks, said Pooh. A third animal has joined the other two. Pooh, cried Piglet. Do you think it is another woozle? No, said Pooh, because it makes different marks. It is either two woozles and one, as it might be whizzle, or two, as it might be whizzles, and one, if so it is, woozle. Let us continue to follow them. So they went on, feeling just a little anxious now, in case the three animals in front of them were of hostile intent. And Piglet wished very much that his grandfather T.W. were there instead of elsewhere, and Pooh thought how nice it would be if they met Christopher Robin suddenly but quite accidentally, and only because he liked Christopher Robin so much. And then all of a sudden Winnie the Pooh stopped again and licked the tip of his nose in a cooling manner, for he was feeling more hot and anxious than ever in his life before. There were 4 animals in front of them. Do you see, Piglet? Look at their tracks. 3 as it were woozles, and 1 as it were whizzle. Another woozle has joined them. And so it seemed to be. There were the tracks, crossing over each other here, getting muddled up with each other there, but quite plainly every now and then, the tracks of 4 sets of paws. I think, said Piglet, and he had licked the tip of his nose too, and found that it brought very little comfort. I think that I have just remembered something. I have just remembered something that I forgot to do yesterday, and shan't be able to do tomorrow. So I suppose I really ought to go back and do it now. We'll do it this afternoon, and I'll come with you, said Pooh. This isn't the sort of thing you can do in the afternoon, said Piglet quickly. It's a very particular morning thing, and it has to be done in the morning, and, if possible, between the hours of... What about time you say the time was? About 12, said Winnie the Pooh, looking at the sun. Between, as I was saying, the hours of 12 and 12:05. So really, dear old Pooh, if you'll excuse me, what's that? Piglet pointed up at the sky. Pooh looked up at the sky, and then, as he heard the whistle again, he looked up into the branches of a big oak tree, and there he saw a friend of his. It's Christopher Robin, he said. Ah, then you'll be all right, said Piglet. You'll be quite safe with him. Goodbye. And he trotted off home as quickly as he could, very glad to be out of all danger again. Christopher Robin came slowly down his tree. Silly old bear, he said. What were you doing? First you went round and round the spiny twice by yourself, then Piglet ran after you, and you went round again together, and then you were just going around for a 4th time. Wait a moment, said Winnie the Pooh, holding up his paw. He sat down and thought, in the most thoughtful way he could think. Then he fitted his paw into one of the tracks, and then he scratched his nose twice and stood up. Yes, said Winnie the Pooh. I see now, said Winnie the Pooh. I have been foolish and deluded, said he, and I am a bear of no brain at all. You're the best bear in all the world, said Christopher Robin soothingly. Am I? Asked Pooh hopefully, and then he brightened up suddenly. Anyhow, he said, it is nearly luncheon time, and so he went home for it. The end. What do you guys think Pooh was really tracking? Was he tracking a woozle, or was he tracking himself? I think he and Piglet were tracking themselves. How silly is that? So I am glad that you have stayed and watched our virtual story time with me. I miss seeing all your smiling faces, and I hope that you drop by and visit me and pick up more Winnie the Pooh adventures or anything else that you would like to read, as well as picking up our craft for today. Do you guys want to know what it is? Do you want to know what our craft is? Do you like doing Miss Megan crafts? Okay, I suppose I'll tell you. I think that you guys should make your very own Piglet and Pooh Bear. What do you think? Do you think that'll be fun? I certainly do. So you guys can swing by the library and pick up everything that you need to make your own Pooh Bear and Piglet. What do you think? Does Miss Megan look good as Pooh Bear? Oh. All right, you guys, that is all I have for you today. I miss you guys very much. Hopefully we will be able to be back in person soon, but we will keep you updated online. Parents and guardians and adults in charge, keep an eye on our Facebook page, and we will let you know as soon as possible when we're able to be back in person. I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you find fun ways to celebrate Winnie the Pooh Day on Tuesday, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.